Good job. Hi,
Welcome,
Tammy.
welcome everyone to the live Q&A with Dr. Rob. I just dropped a headphone. Oh my gosh, you're I'm struggling with my technology. Thank you. We're here. Okay,
I just want to tell you, I've
so
had this shirt since 1994,
there you
and I
go.
knew that it would come back. I knew it would,
It
and it did.
everything does. Yeah, I've
I
got
know.
yeah, it's kind of fun,
I
but
still have
I
my
like
bell
it. It looks like
bottoms, but
real. I've got some of those. We have we have if we you're right, if we wait long enough and it does look nice, I think it looks nice and cuddly and cozy too. So
and I will tell you folks that Tammy and I are pretty much the same age, and we both went through Jane Fonda and lots of aerobics, and that's probably why my feet hurt.
I
But
still got stuck in disco, so there's that. So yeah. But
I love.
anyway,
All right. This is not helpful.
okay. We haven't talked in too long. Okay, so
I
after
know.
2 years of recovery, my wife has asked for a full disclosure with a polygraph after saying for the last couple of years she doesn't need a therapeutic disclosure. What can I expect? I've been told, but I've told my CSAT, but haven't met with them about it. That's a great question. So, do you have
I'm
thoughts, or
reading it
you?
again because I want to
Okay,
understand. Like,
yeah.
what I don't. So, a couple of things. I don't know what 2 years of recovery means. Means. And just
Hmm.
by the way, we don't know your specific situations, so we're answering a general way. So I may
Yeah.
say, "Gee, I don't know what that means." You may be thinking, "Well, I did this and this and this." I don't know. I just read this, so I don't know what recovery means. Just to say it, um, I don't think it's surprising that a spouse will say, I can't handle it, or I don't know if I can stay with you if you tell me all this. I've had spouses who have religious beliefs that say, I if I knew about these things, I wouldn't be able to stay. All kinds of reasons. So I don't doubt the spouse for saying I'm not ready, and I don't question a spouse when they say they are. Um, Tammy, oh, there's one. Polygraph for years is saying she doesn't need it. So why don't you answer the second part? Do you mind? What is it and how it works? Forget the
Uh,
polygraph part,
yeah.
just the
Okay.
disclosure
Okay.
part.
Yeah. The formal therapeutic disclosure. So, I mean, honestly, we've talked on other webinars too, where like even if your spouse doesn't want it, it's still really good to do. You can do it with your therapist, you can do it with your sponsor, you can do it with a group, but doing that often really helps the betraying partner identify the magnitude of
Hmm.
the acting out. So I mean, because we're really good at compartmentalizing, so well, it's that and that and that, and that's all. Well, but when we're starting doing that work, then we're going, oh wow, and we can have that perspective, and it really is a great form of relapse prevention. So, and I'm with Dr. Rob that like, yeah, there's spouses that are so betrayed, so hurt, or don't really think I need it, and then they do want it later, and that uh, okay, great. If you're looking to repair the relationship, then yes. Now, there's lots of, and here's where it gets kind of dicey. There's lots of different ways that people are doing this, and and there's different formats. Some people are like, 5-hour formal therapeutic disclosures. I will own that I personally would struggle with that. So I would want all the data. I would not want to be polluted with more than I have to have. I would want to know the content and the extent. But I don't know, how much, people can tolerate. So there are ways to have it be, you know, uh, um, more compressed, more succinct, really valuable. So I think that that's one of those things to talk to your CSAT, but no CSAT that I know of that has integrity is going to do that without your spouse having, their own qualified professional. So I will, like they should have theirs. You would be working on this. You've been doing this for 2 years. You should be able to pull that information together pretty quickly. I would not, this should not, I shouldn't use shoulds. Um, I would not anticipate that this would take months, like 6 months or whatever. I mean, it's the beginning of February. I think in a month or two, you could have that if your wife is ready for it. That would be great. Now, her professional person would be working with her, like, what questions does she have, and to help make sure that those are being addressed. I also have found, because I've worked with some partners, and like they have this huge list of questions, and what it really does is it narrows it. There's really like a handful of questions. All of this other is just clutter, and so I'm really looking for this information, and that's important. all of this other stuff is just like, if you know that, then you're going to ask another question, then there's going to be another question. So it's like, what do you really need in order to, to have the verification and validation of, of that. Now, and I will talk about the second part. I've had lots of. I'm sorry, but I've done lots
I
of
know, I
conversation.
know.
I know, but like I keep begging someone, show me the protocol, show me the efficacy. There's all kinds of anecdotal stuff about polygraph. I even had somebody in a respected organization, saying, well, what happens if the polygraph was done on the document? And it was, did you do this to the best of your ability? And I thought about it, and like, it took a while because I didn't answer immediately because I wanted to really think about it. And I decided I would pass on the polygraph because did I do it to the best of my ability is arbitrary. It is like, do I think I did to the best of my ability? I would be sitting there going, did I do it to the best of my ability? Could I have done 1% better? I might have been able to do 1% better, and I probably would fail the polygraph. A polygraph does not measure honesty, it measures stress. And so, all the statistics that float
Tammy,
around about that,
let's
what?
let's just
No,
move
all the
on from
statistics that float
polygraphs.
around about that still leave vulnerabilities for relationships. So, here's where I was going with it is, like, what is your wife seeing with your actions over the past 2 years? To me, that is a better validation of your moving forward than a machine that is fallible. And that's all I was. So I honestly wasn't going to spend the whole hour talking about polygraph,
No, no, I know how
but
strong you feel about it.
yeah, and well, and everybody thinks I'm anti polygraph because I
You're
make no
just pro
money.
research.
I'm
That's
pro couples getting
right,
help.
right.
Yes, I spent this afternoon doing a lot of research on a different topic. Really interesting. I'll tell you later. But yeah, so it's I'm like looking for the valid verification. Nobody has been able to give me any of that, and I care about you and your relationship. And they're like, well, the best statistic I heard was like 86%. I was that still means 14 people out of 100 are getting wrong information. And that to me was a high statistic. So I think your actions and what are you doing with intention and showing that you are moving forward in a different way, committed to recovery. If you're going like, well, I go to one meeting or every couple of weeks and see my therapist once a month, that would make me nervous, about your recovery. So that to me is a better verification of things than, but here's the deal. Don't bother doing a formal therapeutic disclosure if you're going to choose to lie and hide and minimize things. I mean, like, just don't bother, because guess what? They find out, and then it's 10 times worse than it would have been had you just been transparent. So yeah, okay.
I wanted to throw some other things in there because I write things down. Just to be really clear, it's not an apology.
Right,
It's not,
good
let
idea.
me tell you all these things I did, and I'm just
Yeah.
so sorry. And it's not a plea for forgiveness. Now that I've told you things, if you just, that makes things worse. Trust me. Um, eh, Here's a list of what's happened. This is what I've done. Do you have any questions? Any questions? Okay, I know this. We're done. And then there's process that goes after that, which is impact letters and ways to work through it. And by the way, I never do a disclosure without saying, what are you going to do after? How are you going to drive home? Who's going to stay where? Who are you going to call? Just to make sure that you're not sitting in a car together on your way to dinner. After that, I did. What did I write down? Well, one more thing about polygraphs and all of that is that I can pass one perfectly and then act out the next day. So what is it really proving, whether they work or not or whatever? What is it really proving? It says up till this moment, I've been honest, but honestly, tomorrow, woohoo! Because as an addict, I'd be thinking, woo, once I pass that, there's one more thing, which is, and I don't really know how to balance this, to be honest, Tammy, is if your spouse wants it and it's really important to them, and they've talked to their colleagues, their friends, whatever. I don't think that's the time to say, well, let's talk about the efficacy. Tammy's right, and I feel strongly about what she said. And by the way, there will be, and we're on the way to eye examination testings where you can actually see where the pupils died, all that. You're not going to be able to lie in the future, but at the moment, um, I would just, and maybe Tammy has a thought about this, but if your spouse, if it's really important to them, they believe that this will be the XYZ, and you're the addict, and you don't think it's the right thing to do or whatever, what do you say to the spouse who wants it?
Well, and lots of people get them, and then the partner believes that now he's telling the truth, and I'm still skeptical because I'm going, well, maybe I know. I hear all the negative stories. I mean, I know I'm jaded, but I get all of the people calling that are saying all of the things that happened that went wrong, and they do,
But if my spouse says, I want
I know.
this,
I want
then
this.
you,
And I hear you. And if the partner believes it, that still doesn't mean he's telling the truth. You can do it. Like lots of people do it. I'm just going, do you want to bet the rest of your relationship on this? I always say, if you're going to do it, have a plan. If he passes, are you going to believe it? If he fails, are you going to believe it? Like, what is your plan for safety for you, regardless of what the outcome of that is? So I I make no money on polygraphs. I make no money on not polygraphs. I don't care other than, I want people to have the best chance at moving forward. And if my experience is people put a lot of weight in he passed a polygraph. So therefore now I know he's honest and he's truthful and all that. But like you said, we know people that have passed that shouldn't have, but people can go right back out and act out. So it's a piece of data. And if you include that in your piece of data,
Mhm.
I still go back to if it's a piece of data, but all of his actions are showing me that he's been, moving forward. That would, and that would carry more weight for me. But I know polygraphs are a big deal for a lot of people, but they are not lie detectors. They're polygraphs. So yeah. Okay. Enough about that. Sorry. I did tons of
Don't be
research on
sorry. You're
this. So yeah.
passionate about wanting
I
to help
know.
people.
And
There's nothing to be
yeah,
sorry for.
I know,
I'm thinking
but
of the spouse who says, whatever, and I'm just being, Tammy said that it isn't this or that. So, I'm not going to do it. And the addict says, well, the addict says that, and the spouse says, well, wait, why aren't you refusing to do it? So I'm just concerned is using it as a way to get out of things.
be
That's
informed consumers. If somebody's telling you you're going to know if he's honest, that is not
right.
true. So be informed consumers. Oh, if you had a betrayed partner joining a therapy session for the first time, what information can the betrayed partner provide that would be helpful for the therapist to know in order to provide proper recovery? My husband has been minimizing and gaslighting his therapist. Great question. I honestly don't know if we've ever had a question quite like this. So that's great. Thank
We
you.
haven't.
I love it.
So just a little bit about bringing a partner in,
Yes.
because I've addicts have addicts say, "Well, it's my therapy, and I don't want them in
Yeah.
here. Everything that happens here is." And as a therapist, what I often do is I'm working with someone, and we have something called collateral support. So I don't want to see your wife, but I want to get her feedback. I want to know who she is. I want to know who you're talking about. Don't need to process with her, don't need to work on things, but I want to hear her point of view and who she is. And then, that is collateral information. As a doctor, I would want to know, what does that report say? That's collateral information. So, and quite honest, some of us addicts, I don't know who will say things like, "Oh, my spouse is awful, and they don't believe, and they're terrible," and because we say what we say, but we're not always entirely honest with our spouses, and we'll say things like the therapist said, and then did they really say it? Were you really acting that way? You're just relying on someone who lies a lot. So I do think, and I really appreciate the question because I think there are a lot of ways to approach this. One of the things I really love is I would say, I'm really thinking a lot about this, and I want to make this as useful for both of us as possible. Um, I don't trust him, and here are the reasons why. I think the broader issue about, it's not just the sexual stuff. I feel like we're not connected. I feel like he doesn't even try. I feel, whatever that is. Um, I would write a list about things. Here's some things I don't know about, and I don't. You're not expecting an answer, but these are things I don't know about. Here are times when I got gaslighted. Here's my fear about being here is that it's going to be used as a, well, my therapist said, there was something else. Help for the therapist to know. Um, I think it's just your experience with loving this person, whether you've been able to exchange, and that seems an odd thing to say because, I could say to you, well, been lying to me, had sex, and I just saw a couple and I thought, how can they love each other in the most meaningful way? And of course, then I think, well, they're not lying. They're not keeping secrets. They're not trying to convince someone of anything. That there are many ways to show love. And to me, the actions are a demonstration of that. And when someone says, no offense to the other person, oh, I've been working in recovery for 3 years. Well, does that mean you've been going get this much support and doing these things? And the other thing that I think is I would ask, not just us, but there are a lot of spouses groups. Some we provide for free. Some, I would say to another, so, what would you do? I mean, in other words, Tammy and I said she's jaded. I think we're informed, but nonetheless, I think you should just talk to regular old folks and say, what did you say? And what would you want to say? Because they've actually been through the experience recently. Um, I can tell you what would not be useful to say is to rage. God damn it, they did. I understand you have every right to, but understand that the therapist has only this snapshot in time to know who you are and where you're coming from. I understand, by the way, when a spouse comes in and they're, absolutely overwhelmed by what's going on with them, that I could say, wow, they're kind of a crazy person. Except I could also say, in this moment, that's who I'm seeing. I don't know who they were 6 months ago. So I do think it's important to present yourself in a way that is honest, that is sincere. And maybe one more thing, don't expect anything from it. It's just information. Well, if I tell them this, this will happen. If I tell them that, all you can do is tell your truth and talk about how it leaves you feeling. I recently talked to a couple, and one of the person says, I want to love them. I want to be close to them. But I can't. And I think something like that would be a wonderful thing to say. Um, so Tammy, this is a
Well,
good question, right?
yeah, I do. And I've got a question for you because my husband has been minimizing and gaslighting his therapist, probably. But what Dr. Rob was talking about is what is your experience? Because um, uh, I think it would be really useful for the therapist to have your input of this is what I'm seeing, and if there's something where I have seen this improvement in this area, but
Hmm.
this is not like it's
Hmm.
really given data, to that,
Right,
and not. I think he's been lying and minimizing you, and
right,
like it's not about the therapist. This is what's happening, like outside of your office therapist. This is what I'm seeing, and we've been involved, for all of these years. And, I kind of get a sense of like this, something maybe, more going on,
right,
whatever it is. But if you're thinking about what data would be useful for the therapist, it would be your experience. I love what Dr. Rob was
right,
saying. And this is how I experience it. I love this person and, I can't be close to them. There's not being trust being built. I'm not seeing his actions moving towards a real recovery, whatever it is, so
And I just want to say I agree with Tam because it is your concrete experience. Only you can say, I think he's been minimizing because they told me this much, and told me that much. And then I think I've been gaslighted because they said they were here and they can try to convince me. But I think specific examples rather than say they gaslight, because the addict says, no, I don't. And again, it isn't about threatening or raging, or it's simply, again, it's just talking about your experience and where it leaves you. It leaves me hurt, leaves me disappointed, leaves me less hopeful, but I think being accusatory is not useful. I think telling your truth is essential. So
yeah,
that's
yeah, I like that. Okay, so then the next one is, do you not agree that the willingness to do a yearly polygraph is intent of honesty? Oh wow. I've had this before where people do, I mean, you get to pick. Like, I'm going to take myself out of it. My relationship built on passing a polygraph would feel too tenuous. Like, if you believe that that's helpful for your relationship, rock on. I mean, to me, I want it to be, here's all the connection points, and I don't have to have the anniversary of a polygraph and have another polygraph to see. Like I like yes. But it's your life, your experience, what you choose to do. Yeah, I mean, I I do have a pretty good BS meter, and but some people can still pull things over on me, but I would rather know that the connection that I'm making with this person feels I'm seeing the actions. If you've been on any of these, I'm in recovery. I still, my husband has never known me in active addiction. He still knows I have addict brain, but he sees me doing the things I need to do, with regularity to make sure that I'm taking care of myself, so that isn't an issue. So that to me is more sincere than a machine. So but again, I'm sharing personal experience. You take what you need and leave the rest. So,
But there's two things, which is one of them I understand, which is if you have someone who's a drug addict, you can test them.
hmm
Did they use? Did they use? You can test their hair. Was it
hmm
3 months ago? There are many ways we can prove whether someone's been using or not. Although not really with alcohol because it goes through the system really quickly.
hmm
But nonetheless, I understand the idea of I don't trust them and they lie and let's see if this is going. But this is not about a substance; it's about a behavior. And I think that's much more difficult to quantify. I really wanted to say something about your last word, which is, well, I'll read the whole thing. Do you not agree the willingness to do a yearly polygraph is an intent of honesty? Um, I don't, so I have many spouses say, you lied to me about this, you lied to me about that, you're not sober. Well, I may lie, I may be dishonest, I may let you down, but that's not the same thing as seeing a sex worker. That's not the same thing as looking at porn for 3 hours a day. So, what might be the breaking point for a spouse, like proof of honesty. I don't know that you can really prove honesty or not. I think you can say, did this behavior happen in this set of circumstances? But I'll tell you, if Tammy said, by the way, I think it's a great color, but if you taught me how to do this, if Tammy said, wow, do you like this color? I would say no, that would not be honest. But I could say something like, I can see why I remember. I can see why you picked that color, and I learned from you.
and
But
I can probably
honesty,
never use this on Dr. Rob again because he knows my secret of like I absolutely defy, and I can see why you would like that. Like that is so whatever. Like there, I have a whole list of little ones that I use, but like there are certain colors that I don't like, and yeah, so
well, as an addict,
whatever.
I'm much more about that looks terrible on you. What are you thinking? And then
Yeah,
they think I'm an asshole. By the
yeah.
way, so I'll put it the other way, which is I might intend all the honesty in the world. Doesn't mean I'm not. I'm honest. To me, it reminds me I'm trying. Um, if you talk to someone and they're defensive, if they say never, always, how could you accuse you when you get those big kind of, it makes me feel less safe. I would want someone to say, be more reflective of what's the word for it? Um, I would want them to be more compassionate about my question, empathetic. I can understand why you would say that, not why are you asking me that? So being demanding, being clear, being defensive, why I think those are signs of not being honest, to be honest, a lack of humility. Let's keep going.
But here's the thing: I think partners like not right again zero. I'm not blaming a single partner with this, but I think as you work on your skill set, you become better at going like, oh wait, that's being defensive. Like you're able to name it. You are not as able to just let those things pass by. So you will identify, oh, that person's pushing back on me. Might be something underneath that. So, and you'll have the support because if you're engaged with a number of people in your tribe that are on that same thing, they'll be able to go, yeah, it sounds like gaslighting, it sounds like defensiveness. You'll have the support to be able to hold the space and go, I am not going to let that go and pretend like it didn't really happen or whatever. The manipulation is easier to identify and not accept. Again, not blaming anyone. I just think that as you go through this, you become more able to own your own truth. So
I do. I'll tell you what I do think is
yeah.
when I think someone's being honest is when they come back to me, even in the moment.
Mhm.
Tammy's angry at me about whatever I did, and even the moment I say, "Oh no, I didn't do that," or only did this little piece of it, if I just come back to her and say, "You know what? It's been a day or two. The truth is, in other words, if you that to me is proof of honesty. Even in the moment, I might not be whatever my issues are. I might say no, no big deal, but as long as I come back to her, to me, that's a sign of honesty that I'm willing to be honest, even if the moment is difficult. So we should go. We've got so
No,
many
but
questions.
I'm gonna one more thing and then we'll go on. But that is
Mhm.
change, and those are the
Right.
actions that are different. And that's what people would see is like, that's different. It wasn't in the moment, but this person came back to me and said things, said, that wasn't the full truth, whatever it was, like, and wants to take responsibility for cleaning it up, so that we can move forward. That that is huge. So,
And by the
okay,
way, I'm not honest for you. I'm honest
good
for
point.
me.
Yes.
They say this work is selfish, and in some ways it is, because as much as I want to respect my relationship with Tammy, what I really want to do is be able to look in the mirror and feel like I can feel good about myself. And to me, people go to treatment. Oh, I want to fix my marriage. I want this and that. What I want to move them to is, when you look in that mirror, do you feel you're seeing someone you respect? And you feel, because if you don't, then the rest of your world will be tainted by that. So you within yourself has to have the motivation of, I'm doing this because I want to be this kind of person. Okay.
And I agree. And that holds for me too. Can you speak to the difference between the sexually addicted and the sexually entitled, to clarify someone that is not acting out to escape or cope, someone whose behavior never escalated and they never experienced any consequences until getting caught and then stopped? Hmm.
I'm not sure what that's asking.
Uh, uh,
I can speak to the
uh,
first sentence or two, but I don't know
yeah.
about the.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I,
Like people, yeah, people aren't coming to us that just match it, that can just stop. So yeah,
but I have had
they could be
people,
out there.
when you talk about entitled, to me,
Yeah.
entitled means I deserve.
Hmm.
And addicts use it all the time. Like,
Yeah.
well, job is difficult. I'm working 3 jobs. I'm taking care of everyone. I come home, nobody's glad to see me. I deserve, and I deserve to go see that sex worker. I deserve
Hmm.
my affair because no one support. That is addict entitlement, which is, it's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault that I'm doing this. I'm entitled. So in that way, I think is, by the way, one of the biggest warning signs for an addict is if they start building a case for why it's okay to act out. But I wanted to, and by the way, I don't think anyone can know whether I'm acting out to escape or not. I know what it means for sex addicts, but people act out for all kinds of reasons, and so I don't think that I can necessarily make a conclusion about what that means they are or they aren't addicted. Um, Someone whose behavior has never escalated, I could say someone whose behavior has never been caught. I don't necessarily. And if they never experienced any consequence until getting caught and stopped, then that tells me that they were doing it for a very long time until they got in trouble, which is most addicts I know. So to me, there's more questions in here about the circumstances you're in than ones that we can really answer. I would say more information. I do want to say one more thing about sexual entitlement, is I certainly work with men who say, we're married and I'm entitled to have sex with you. And I- and in rare, I want to have this kind of sex. So in other words, I've heard women say, and please forgive me, I heard a woman say, I felt like I was raped by my husband because he felt he deserved, and it doesn't matter how I felt or what I needed. And to me, that's sexual entitlement. Rather, to feel entitled to act out, that's an internal job. To feel entitled to do whatever I want with you as my spouse, that borders on rape to me. So there you go. What I can answer.
Yeah. Well, no, I was thinking about that, and I was like, going back to it never escalated, so I don't know when the first acting out behavior started. Oftentimes it's a teen. So if the teen did the same thing that this now presumably adult person is doing, and it was always the same, it never, escalated into higher risk or more frequency, like the frequency, like all of that stuff never changed. I mean, this happens with porn. Like sometimes it'll be like, oh, saw some images, whatever, and then it gets to be more of a pattern, and it escalated in the duration and the frequency of the acting out. So I'm with Dr. I just put it's the shortest little self-assessment. It would only be a quick little screening thing. But if somebody's willing to answer that, honestly, there's more information. But a CSAT has a huge, it's a 600 question a screening assessment that can be really useful for identifying, what's going on. And it's not like a blood test where you get, oh, you've got this or that. These are just parameters that will help the CSATs. I ask more questions about, well, you identified this bit, but I heard you say something and you didn't say yes to this. So let's talk about that. So it's really complicated, and that's why we recommend certain, qualified professionals to do this work, because this takes a high level of training. Okay.
And we use
Please.
it almost consistently in treatment because,
Yeah.
and part of treatment, as Tammy said it really beautifully, is, you know, I I believe that you absolutely love your wife and you would do anything for her, and yet when it comes to acting out, you do so many things that aren't for her. So what you say, what you do, I can see it on a piece of paper, and that makes it easier rather than accusing you. By the way, I'm going to, I always say things that people may not like, but got caught and then stopped. I don't know about that. I know a lot of people who get caught, they don't stop, they just became better liars. So again, I when you see someone taking action toward, listen, could it hurt to take a class? Would it hurt to listen to my podcast? Would it be awful to take one of the courses? I mean, sometimes people say, I don't have this problem, and then they think, oh, right, I do. So I think more information is needed as well, and certainly so much more than that person is saying. Yeah.
And I'm going to put a plug in for the Out of the Doghouse for Men Who've Been Caught Cheating work group. I'll put the link in a moment. It's on our website. But lots of guys go, I need to go fix my relationship, and they want to start there. And as they're in that, they realize, oh, I need to go back to sex addiction 101 or porn addiction 101, because they don't have that foundation to stay stopped. Like stopping in a crisis, like, that's stopping cold turkey and going, oh, I'm so scared.
You get lung cancer, stopping smoking, that's a crisis.
Yeah, but guess what? There's lots of people on oxygen smoking cigarettes. So the staying stopped. Stopping in the moment is not so difficult. The staying stopped and dealing with life, that's what recovery is all about. So
And in that way, it's like having diabetes. You
yeah.
have, or even anxiety. You have a consistent emotional health problem that needs to consistently be addressed, or it will go, or it will, and it's a remission, but it goes out of remission. And that's what Tamara and I are talking. You don't do your blood work, you don't watch you take your medication. You're not doing the things to ensure you don't end up. I like the word remission, by the way, because I do think that stopping is a gift and it's a remission. But if I don't pay attention, I'll end up right where I did before.
So my husband is an SA, and we've been married for 11 years with 2 kids. We did not have a therapeutic disclosure. I kept asking, and he gave me trickle truths. He had a burner phone, and I saw lots of
Mm.
messages from him to sex workers, including photos. I can't get these out of my head. We're both in therapy with a CSAT, and he started a 12-step. I'm afraid I'll never get over this. It's been 2 months since I learned he is a sex addict, 2 years since he gave me an
Mm.
STD. Is there too much damage?
I mean, I think it'd be great if you started that, if you don't
I,
mind.
I know how painful this is for you. And I hear people that are in situations very similar to yours, and they do heal. He's just like, it's been 2 years, but you guys are literally at the very threshold of starting all this, so I can't express enough. And I'm going to go pull the work group. The Betrayed Partner work group starts on Wednesday. Please join that. I'm going to put some links in, for different things. You can always email tami@seekingintegrity.com. But this goes back to what we were saying, about what are his actions, and he, the trickle truths, like if he had been working with a qualified professional, that wouldn't have, that would not have been, well, it depends if he's still lying to his therapist. I'm not going to go down that direction, but so you holding a healthy boundary of, no, I need a formal therapeutic disclosure. Don't tell me anything more. I want this, here's one more thing. We have an expert residential treatment program for guys like
That's gonna
him. Yeah, because that's how he can get a solid foundation more quickly. You would have support. He would learn a lot. It takes 2 to 5 years if he's doing the work. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying, you're at the beginning point. You will see change. All of those things and actions that I was talking about, you would see change if he's actually doing the work. Unfortunately, and there's a lot of addicts that do this, that are like, no, I'm doing good, and see, I'm doing, and that's still lying, to their partners. And look where it's got them. So if you're an addict partner that's listening and you're kind of doing this stuff, look what happens. Like it's just unnecessary. I often say, if an addict could see how good life would be if we would just be willing to do the work, we would all be, we'd be going like, yep, that's what I want. But we're terrified and scared, and we don't know how to live life without the things that we've been doing. You said he's going to 12 step. I'm going to, if he's going to one meeting a week, he's just warming a seat. If he's going to 90 meetings in 90 days, he's getting a sponsor, he's starting to work the steps. That would be, information for me. I'm going to go pull this too. So while Dr. Rob talks, but we've got we did a webinar on navigating the 12 steps in S because there's a bunch of different ones. And we also did one on real recovery. So I'll put those links in there, free webinars. Again, take what you need and leave the rest. So.
Well, a couple of things. A lot of you don't know this. You may never know this, but those of you who have children, not all of you do, I actually do this for them, because they're the future. They're the ones who matter. They're the ones who need you to be most stable and engaged. So when you say we have 2 kids and married 11 years, it affects them, and I say to men, have you been a good father? Oh, yes, I took them to games. I did all this stuff for them and this and that. And Tammy's heard me say this many times. You can't be a good father unless you've supported your spouse. So if you leave your partner, say a woman in this case, worried, anxious, where are you? Why won't you listen to me? That doesn't make them the mom that they need to be, whether gender, it doesn't make them the mom they need to be. So you're not giving your kids what they need by leaving your spouse feeling doubting or uncomfortable. And again, I say that just because to me, I want you guys to be happy and I want things to work out. But if you have kids, that means everything to me on some level. And maybe because I grew up in an environment where nobody talked about it and no one did anything about it, and I knew all this stuff in the background, and no one said anything about it. I'm not saying you should say that to them, but I didn't know why things were so unhappy, and they told me everything's fine, and that meant it was my fault. So anyway, I am compassionate toward them, and and I'll say to the guys I work with, if you don't have a reason to recover for your spouse, recover for your kids. Again, you may get to the point you look in the mirror, but Lord, don't. I'm sorry to rant about the kids stuff, Tammy, but this is where
No, please.
I
That's
get
I'm with
stuck.
you. Yeah.
Is you're fortunate if you've had kids since you've been married and you have 11 years, you have young children, and they have an opportunity to see what a man and a woman, or what two men, whatever your gender is, how a couple gets along. What does it mean? How do they talk about things? How are they treated? This is probably the most, well, first 3 to 5 years, it is the most growth we experience until being teenagers. And it is the most fundamental growth. And so they need everything that you have to give now. And I've certainly worked with a lot of men who will say, you know, uh, I wish I was like Joe because he has a 5-year-old, but my son is 35 and I can't help him anymore. And I can only, support him and love him. But the damage that I made, I have to live with that. So the last I wanted to ask, first I wanted to respond to what Tammy said, which is 2 months is you have a 2-month-old. Think about it like that. And you're saying,
Mhm.
well, when are they going to go to kindergarten? When are they going to high school? Well, it takes a while for the situation to mature. Um, is there too much damage? So I wrote down this word: feelings are not facts. So
Mhm.
you may absolutely believe and be worried about and think about, how could I ever forgive? How could we ever go forward? Are things too damaged? Um, the fact that you feel that way may not be the fact of things going forward. And I can certainly feel, I can't imagine us go forward. I'm so angry, I'm so hurt, I'm so disappointed. I can't see how we'd move forward. But practice and time and watching them really work, it may be, I'll never forget. And I don't expect you to forgive in that way. But I have hope. And I have so many couples that say, after all of this, I can't imagine. Well, you if you've been at this long enough, you realize that you share a lot more than this. And I'm not forgiving it, but you probably have kids, you probably have family, you probably have church, you probably have home, you have a lot that you share together. And in perspective, when this begins to become less of an immediate issue, I think you may want to reflect on everything else that we share. I'm not saying put up with it. I'm not saying stay around for it, but I would not let the feeling I'm having right now, especially in 2 months, guide me as to what's going to happen in the future. So,
Okay. So then the next one. obviously the cheaters are able to highlight and manipulate. They are obviously able to get over on their spouse. Wouldn't the willingness to be an indication that they are being transparent? So this is back to polygraphs. So you know what Dr. Rob just said? Feelings are not facts. So, like the feeling of like, well, if he's willing, then he must be honest. Like, I mean, I'm going to end there. It's like you get to pick if you want to do a polygraph and you think it will make you feel better. Again, please have at it. People email me and want names of polygraphers, and I tell them, I have to pass on that. But it's your relation. You get to pick. I did tell the person, like, and like, even if I was arrested for murder, which I won't do, like,
Thank
um,
goodness, because I
I
don't live where
know.
you live.
No,
Thank
I know,
goodness.
but like I was like, would I take a polygraph if like if somebody was like, well, you just need to be clear for, and I was like, if it was a one question, did you murder that person? Then I would, because like I would know for sure that I didn't. But anything where there's, did you do it to the best of your ability? Is this complete? Like any of those things, there's too much things, and I do hear of the people who failed, who were trying to be honest, and then what? So it isn't just that they pass. Like I think some of you are perceiving that I think that they will all pass. No, I have people that fail. I like there was a guy that called in and he was so anxious, but his spouse was making him do it. And I said, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I gave him the information. I said, I hear you. And he called back and he had failed. And I wasn't surprised. And I felt so bad. I mean, he was in tears because he was trying so hard, and I do have a pretty good BS meter. So I do believe he was sincere. So it works both ways. It's just, again, be really clear on, like what is your goal with this, and have clear. It's not going to tell you that he's honest, but it will give you information. And are you going to believe it either way? So it's you get to pick. So
I want to add one thing, which is I understand and I support actually a spouse in the beginning when you have absolutely no idea what's going on. I actually support looking through phones, looking at phone bills. You don't know what reality has been. I don't think it's codependent. I think it's reality, which is, oh my God, I have no idea what's going on with my life. I'm seeing this and this, and I want to know if there's more and more. And I understand that at a certain point, you do need the facts. And at a certain point, it becomes counterproductive because in one way or another, you're asking the same thing over and over again, which is, can I trust you? Can I trust you? Can I trust you? And I think spouses think, well, if I get this answer, then I'm going to be okay. And then things are going to get better. But what often happens is they say, well, what about that? Now they have a new question. So in a way, to me, this is I don't say larger, it is another example of, if I can prove this, if I can find that, then XYZ. But there's always going to be another, and there's always going to be another. So, willingness to be transparent, I think there are a lot of ways to figure out if someone's willing to be transparent. And I don't think that necessarily being willing, anyway, I guess where I land is there a lot that would not be the primary way that I would want to look for willingness. Um, yeah.
yeah, we talked about actions, like even when you gave the example of like my action of going back and saying, hey, that when I said that, it wasn't the complete truth, or was like, that is the actions. Oh, I love this question. My addict husband says he can promise he will work on recovery. He can't promise that he'll never act out again in the future. This feels very unsafe to me, and I'm not sure how to respond or feel. We are 4 months post discovery, and each has CSAS, but he's not in group yet, but plans to be. Okay. So I love the first part and hate the second part. How's that? I love the first part. I have been in recovery for decades. And like I said earlier, I still won't tell my husband that I'm not. But unlike this one, like, I'm sorry, 4 months, he could have done the 90 meetings in 90 days. He could have a really solid foundation. That is the part that, because he's giving you lip service. I can't promise they'll never act out again, but he will work on recovery. But then his actions are showing you that he is not working on recovery yet. You could have the best CSAT in the planet. Like, when Dr. Rob was doing individual therapy, that isn't enough. This is 24/7, issue, and decades old. And to go, well, I'm going to go see an expert for 50 minutes once a week and then I'll be better. that those would be the actions that show me that you are not working, on creating safety. So I put the work group link in the chat. It's on Seeking Integrity under work groups. If you're listening to this later, the Sex Addiction 101 would be a great group, and that still isn't enough. And then I also put the navigating the 12 steps and what real recovery look like. Take a look at those webinars. But I wonder about you, partner. Like, first of all, the betrayed partner work group starts on Wednesday. Great. But a boundary of like, I'm going to take care of me because lips moving is lies. It's what are our actions doing that show you? So I'm going to take care of me, and I'm going to be over here working on, getting support for me. And I'm going to watch, and I'm hopeful that you're willing to step into the recovery program and you're really going to lean in and do the work. I hope he's listening to this. But until and unless I see the actions with my own little eyes, I'm going to be over here, taking care of me, because that's the one person that will take care of me is me. So,
Well, I'm going to go to the first question, the first part of it,
yeah.
which is um, I have tremendous respect for the person who says, one day at a time, I'm going to do everything I can to keep this from happening, but I cannot promise that I will never do it again. I think Tam would say, as an alcoholic, she
And
has
other things.
absolutely belief. Well, I'm using an example.
Yeah.
As I know you're a lot sicker than you say, but
Yeah.
I'm just giving
Yeah.
this one example.
Yes, I
So,
know.
Tammy can say, I'm committed to not drinking. I'm going to the support groups to not drink. I'm being honest about not drinking. But she can't tell me she'll never drink again. You know, it's, someone dies, it's a wedding, um, we call it a temporary reprieve. And I think that's what it is. I love that he said this because the person who says to her spouse, I'm never going to do this again, I worry because I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I mean, I hope that I continue to go down this road and be respectful and, but I don't know. And so I love, and I know the spouses don't, but I love the fact that he said, I can't guarantee. All I can do is what he said, I can promise to work on recovery. That's the only guarantee he can give you is I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this. He can promise you that he's committed to change and he's working on change. And as Tammy said, you will see that. But to say to you, I will never, ever do it again, I don't know. That worries me because uh, that again, it's like saying, I don't know, it's a good metaphor. I can't, I don't know, it's a good metaphor. I'm working on this. I love you and I care about you and I'll be with you the rest of my life. Well, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to be here at the rest of, but I know today I love you and I care about you. I'm doing my best to be present. And tomorrow, I hope to be able to do that again tomorrow. I think this is the last thing that any spouse wants to hear. And I get lots of, what's the opposite of a fan letter? I guess I hate email.
Hey,
I
no.
get I get a lot from you spouses who say, well, what do you mean? I mean, he went to your treatment center. Why isn't he went to all these meetings? He did exactly what you and Tammy said. And, how come he's still doing this or whatever? How come this is still going on? And, I what I want to say about that. There is no cure is what I wanted to say. There's only a daily reprieve. And all I can say to you is today, this is what I'm doing. I know you spouses want to hear it's fixed, it's done. I'll never have to hurt like this. I don't have to worry about this in the future. I don't think that unfortunately it works that way. And there's a part of you that will never trust, and that's understandable. And I don't need to say the examples I have about trust, but the trust you had will never be restored. You will never be able to guarantee to yourself, I know he won't. But you can say, based on what I see him doing, I believe that for today, he's committed to not having this recur. I do also suggest that you look at what would happen if he did. How would you handle it? Because I've heard many spouses say, if you, no, I'm not making fun of
Mhm.
you. If you do this again, I'm leaving you. Well, I want you to really think about that. But first of all, if you say you're leaving me if I do it again, why would I ever tell you? Why would I ever tell you? Which is the goal for me to be honest with you. Excuse me. And as I said many times, make sure you're ready to leave if you're going to leave, because if it happens again and you don't leave, then you're giving a message that, well, I can do whatever I want. And they're going to threaten, but they're not going to do anything about it. And And I need to believe that I need you to know that you have to respect your own beliefs and follow them. Um, yeah. So
Two more things on that. One is I need to not tell myself that I'll never do that again. Like I need to be wary enough.
right,
Yes. So it isn't just like I'm not going to tell you. You will
right.
feel better if I do that. But what Rob said earlier, feelings are not facts. Just because you feel better doesn't mean you're safer. So you should be a little wary. Like you should know that yes, we can do this again. And I love what Dr. Rob said about what are you have a plan, like if this person does this again, and it could. I like the little bit open, and I'm going to give myself 24 or 48 hours to decide what the consequences will be. To me feels like it gives you more wiggle room of like, then I'm going to leave if you ever do it again. It's like I'm going to have to look at, and take this into consideration, get some input on it, but I will give myself, 24, 48 hours, to decide what the consequence would be. Then you get to decide of like, okay, you know, I have seen you make some progress. I'm willing to hang in there. I'm going to put the relationship in safe harbor for 90 days, but this is what I'm going to look for to see in order for you to build trust again. There's all kinds of stuff with that. So okay,
I wanted to say something about the 12
yes.
steps.
Hmm.
Um, uh, so the first step, we admitted, we meaning everyone in the group, all of our experience, not just me, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction or our behavior, and that our lives had become unmanageable. We are literally saying, I don't know if I can handle this. I don't know if it's going to go well. I haven't been able to stop on my own. And it is admission of what is the word? It's about acknowledgement, not defeat. I'm saying that once it gets going, I am powerless. Unmanageable means I understand there are negative consequences, but that won't necessarily help me stop. So I pay a lot of attention to 12 steps. I think it really is a guide for life. And for me to say, and by the way, I want to say that, part of the challenge for addicts, in my opinion, is, oops, there we go, is is you don't lie at work. I would never lie on a business contract. I would never lie to a client. I would never lie to, my kid's teacher, or whatever. So we are consistent. We are honest. We don't lie. We are good people, all of that, except when it comes to this. Now, I understand that when you're doing this, you become a more global liar or whatever that is. But I am not powerless over making a business decision. I'm not really powerless over, when we will get a red couch or a blue couch, make a decision, move on. But I'm powerless over this going away or this not happening. I can only guarantee you today. Um, so I always say so. So means let's go.
How do you determine who is the sex addict? There are qualifiers for determining SA. If the client does not meet the qualifications for an SA, then how can they be determined to be an SA? It seems like if the client does not meet the qualifications, the CSAT will manipulate the qualifiers to say they are an addict
Ooh.
anyway. Oh, this feels like there's been a thread of I think there's someone that does not like CSATs. And it's an assessment.
Can
It
you
prints
tell me
out a
what a CSAT
report.
is? Because not
A
everyone may know.
certified sex addiction therapist and certified sex addiction therapist. And no, the assessments actually print off a report. So it isn't the CSAT manipulating. Like there are some that you do the little 20 questions by hand or whatever, but it's like if you answer 13 out of 20, then they're answer 13. The CSATs are not in the business. This is a lot of work. This is hard stuff. CSATs are not in this business to make everybody a sex addict, and CSATs are not in this business to manipulate. That is not my experience. There are some that I don't recommend this for completely different things, but
Right.
it's not like I recommend a lot of really good certified sex addiction therapists who do amazing work and help lots of people who are hurting in their most painful time of life. And so I have I am sad that there's this attitude that CSATs are just out to skew things. That's not true. And I'm sorry that you hold that position, but that is not valid. I know I literally, I'm not exaggerating, know thousands of CSATs. So that
And
is
by the way, I
not my
want to say,
overarching
and this is
experience.
we get nothing from this, but
Correct.
we do get to share. our experience working with people and what we've done with this population, I mean, these professionals for a very long time. And if you really want to know someone that you think Tammy is going to recommend, drop her a note, TAMI at Seeking Integrity. That's TAMI at Seeking Integrity. She'll tell you the truth. We won't say you're seeing so and so, you should, you shouldn't. But if you, and by the way, you can interview therapists. It isn't like I'm seeing them and I like them. I believe responsibility to say, sure, I'll see you for an hour or half an hour and get to know you and see if we get along. I don't necessarily have to charge you because they're not going to work. So I don't think you just necessarily have to see the first person or go by the qualifications, but you can call Tammy. um,
Well, but
I
but
wanted to
one
say,
more
wait,
thing on
wait.
this. Go ahead.
Okay, you go.
Well, I was going to say,
Um,
like nobody goes to see a certified sex addiction therapist that there isn't infidelity or there's some problematic
right.
sexual behavior. You don't go because you're, chewing too much bubble gum, So I like there's a reason, and it's for them to help parse out what's going on. So and they're qualified to do it.
It's so funny that you said that to me, Tammy. I think because, oh gosh, for so many reasons. But let me ask, I know we have very little time. Let me just answer the first part of this question I think
Mhm.
is really important. How do you determine if someone's a sex addict? Is it how are they qualify? How do they not qualify? So I have a very simple definition, and you may or may not agree. I'll use it in terms of alcohol. Some people could have a couple of drinks in the evening, doesn't affect their life, they relax, not my judgment. Another people have a couple of drinks in the evening and they get absolutely smashed, and they have a lot of problems with it. Some people like alcohol, some people like wine, some people who drink both are perfectly fine, but other people aren't. And so, what you choose, whiskey or wine, does not define alcoholism. Whether you have two drinks at night or four drinks at night, that doesn't define alcoholism. I drink differently than you. To me, the disease of addiction is determined by how is it affecting my life? Is my drinking causing me to hurt my family? Is it causing me to hurt myself? Is it causing me to live against my values? To me, in some ways, in many ways, addiction. I said this to someone recently. I said, look, if you're okay with lying consistently, and that is who you are, and you want to embrace that, um, good for you. Go right ahead. Um, if that lying consistently causes harm and hurt and disappointment, then you have to take another look at it. So, no, I don't think that there are many people I work with who might be into, I don't know, wearing panties or they like to be tied up or whatever their thing is. And I don't judge them as a sex addict by that. I People do all kinds of things that I may or may not like. I don't judge their addiction by what turns them on or not. What I really judge, have you been lying? Have you been gaslighting? Have you been manipulating? Have you been hiding? Have you been saying you want to get along with your partner and destroying at the same time? To me, addiction is defined by how how the behavior in the situation is working against what you believe in and what you want to be. I want to love my spouse and be a good husband, and I do all of these things to destroy that. So, to me, that is a very good example. Not the kind of sex I have, and not who, but I'm lying. Anyway, I already said it. Can we take one more real quick, or do you not
Which
want
one?
to?
I've been typing, so
I
yeah.
have to walk my dog. So let's see if there's a really short one. Um, uh, well, yeah. I will.
I'm gonna
It's
you. Should we do the dating one? I
Yeah. I
don't
was
know if I
thinking of
will
that.
ever date again, but if I do, I'm unwilling to date someone who is cagey, secretive, and always keeps it locked. I don't believe I can trust anyone again, especially because I don't want to. That's because I don't want to trust. It hasn't been safe. I know it's not actually a question, but that's where I'm at.
I
So
would just simply say this is when I'm apt, when I'm someone who makes wrong decisions about relationships, and I tend to put myself in situations that I later regret. I wouldn't say that's forever. I won't tell you that I'll act out forever, but I can tell you if I get help and support, I will make better decisions. So what I have told many women, I assume you're a woman, is to get a posse. If you go to
mhm.
a 12-step program, a sponsor's good. If you have some girlfriends or people who are really there for you, go through everything that you have done that you think didn't work for the relationship. Go through everything you want from a relationship, and then go through everything you don't want. And so I've heard people say, "Oh my goodness, they're so wonderful. I'm so entranced with them. I know that they do heroin and they're still living at home with their wife, but honestly, they're really good people." So in the moment, I can be so caught up in the feeling that I miss the facts. And I think this is the purpose of having other people, as they say, "Oh, you said you wanted this, but now you seem to be really interested in that." And then they can say, "I'm not sure you should date that person again." So I'm saying I don't trust myself to make the right decisions. But that doesn't mean I never going to be in a relationship again. That means I need guidance and support toward making better decisions. It means I don't pick well. So somebody else can say to me, this is how you don't pick well and you're doing it again. And I just need that accountability to make better decisions. Um, yeah. Tammy, it's always a
Okay.
pleasure. I
It
love working
is.
with you. We'll talk
Thank
tomorrow.
you. I hope so.
All
Yeah,
right.
I've
I'm
missed you. All
sure we
right.
will. All right.
Bye,
Bye for
everyone.
now.